Hello, everyone. On behalf of Peetsy, I'd like to thank you for attending today. My name is Kathleen Gibson, and I'm the Early Childhood Specialist here at Peetsy. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with who we are, as Virginia's Parent Training and Information Center, our mission is to provide the tools and information necessary to empower families of children with disabilities and the professionals who serve them to build strong relationships in order to improve our children's success in school and life. I'd like to thank each of you for joining the first session of Therapist Thursdays, Tips and Tools to Supporting Our Little Ones. Peetsy is excited to bring you this series on simple and fun ideas to build skills and activities at home during this time. We have set aside time near the end of the presentation to go over any questions you may have. You can submit your questions through the chat box located in the controls near the bottom of your screen. If you have any questions that are personal in nature, we will follow up over email. We will also share a copy of this presentation and any additional resources with everyone afterwards. With that said, I'd like to welcome Michelle Bearer. Michelle is a pediatric speech-language pathologist who serves the communities of Harrisonburg City and Rockingham County through the Infant and Toddler Connection. She received her bachelor's degree from James Madison University and continued her coursework at Longwood University, where she received her master's degree. Welcome, Michelle.
Hi, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm so excited for today's webinar. So let's jump right in. Thank you so much. Oh, sorry about that. Thank you so much, Kathleen, for introducing me to everybody. Like she said, I'm an early interventionist. I'm a speech language pathologist, and I am not yet a mom, but I definitely respect all of the parents out there who are taking care of their young children at this stressful time. So in the flyer, Kathleen was able to give us a really nice group of questions to answer. So my goal in today's presentation is to go ahead and answer those with you guys. The first one is, how do we work on therapies in our home? The second one is, do we have the tools in place? And the third one is probably my favorite because it's, where do we even begin? So before we jump right into the strategies, I definitely want to keep this quote in mind, and it's that children are great imitators. So give them something great to imitate. The first strategy that I would love to talk to you guys with is commenting. So that's narrating or talking about what you or what your child are doing during a natural family routine. The first example is cooking. I've been spending a lot more time at home than I typically do. And so I've been getting really into baking. Something that I joke about with this picture is, don't give your toddler or infant a knife, but definitely include them in some of your cooking routines. So with a really little child, you might be thinking about, okay, I can kind of teach them about what they're eating for their snack. So as you're slicing an apple, you can tell them, I'm cutting up the apple into really little pieces so that you can eat this for your snack today, rather than silently facing the counter, cutting something up and giving it to them. With an older child, you might want to talk about sequencing. So how do we make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? First, we have got to find that bread. So you can make it an interactive routine simply just by talking with your child. Another great example is when you're filling up their juice cup. So if you can see on the fridge right over there, there's a cup waiting to be filled up with water. And again, as a clinician, not so much as a parent, I've seen kids just run out of water or juice or milk and always ask for more. Maybe your child is not verbal quite yet and they're not able to verbally tell you more. So instead of putting the work on them, you can put the work on yourself and say, okay, this is a natural routine. I have to fill up their water cup. I could go over to the fridge, silently fill it up, give it right back to them. Or you can talk about specific words like verbs. I like turning things into a game. So every day you open up their juice cup and fill it up. Maybe tomorrow after today's webinar, you can go over to your child and say, oh, I'm trying to twist this open and I just can't. Let's open it together. Pull, twist. So you're able to just comment on different verbs that go into this natural routine rather than doing it silently. The last example for commenting is probably my favorite one. I really enjoy encouraging children to read books in their family routines. And if you have any books in your home, now is a great time to start working on it with them. But a lot of families that I'm working with will tell me it's really difficult to get them to engage in the book. And let me give you something to compare and contrast here with this book page that we can all see. So if I'm reading to you and I say, by the big red barn in the great green field, and I just turn the page, that might not be as exciting as commenting to them on what they see in the book. So I have 3 examples here I want to run through with just this one page. The first thing that pops out to my eyes is that sun. There's also a fireplace in the Goodnight Moon book that I always enjoy playing around with little ones. But everybody knows that the sun is hot, and in the summer it's hot because the sun is shining so bright. So my first inclination is to bring my hand over to the sun and say, uh-oh, ouch, that was really hot. Maybe you can even blow on your finger and act like this is a really big deal, it's hot. Then your child might be interested, and then they can join in on that routine with you. That commenting can turn into a very repetitive routine with them. The next thing is that barn door, and it's just open a little bit. So my mind tells me to pretend to knock on the door, and you can even touch the book. So knock on the door and say, hello, is anybody in there? I think I hear a cow. Moo. So with that younger child, you can work on animal sounds and the animals that live in a barn. With an older child, you can actually work on categorization. So which animals do belong in the barn and which animals don't. It can turn into a really funny game where your child is able to tell you, like, no, a zebra doesn't belong in there, but a cow does. And there's one final example here on this just single book page that we're looking at together. And it's all those pretty flowers on the bottom part of the page. So again, my brain is telling me, okay, what can we do to be interactive and comment while we're reading this book? You can pretend to pick one of those flowers up and smell it. And kids usually get a kick out of it when you start to go, chew, and pretend that that flower made you sneeze. Typically, children will ask, like, do that again. That's so fun. And then if you have an older child and you're trying to work on different skill levels with them, you can talk about the body senses and what they do. So my nose, I just smelled the flower with my nose. I didn't use my ears. We use our ears to hear so that they can have some additional learning. So my favorite thing about this is it's a book. I didn't read any of those words, but you were able to comment about different things that you see. And that should set your child up to realize that commenting can be normal. And my parents were able to show me that they were talking about things in the kitchen, talking about filling my cup up, or talking to me while reading a book. And since we know from the quote we read in the beginning that children are great imitators, they might imitate this commenting strategy and say, well, we saw the sun in this book, and I saw it in the book that we read last night. I'm going to start on that hot routine with that sun. So you might be thinking, okay, cool, Michelle, commenting sounds great, but where do I start with this? I definitely would refer families to the 30 Million Words Initiative. It has 3 T's for parents to work on their commenting skills. The first one is tune in. And in early intervention, we would call that following your child's lead. So after today's presentation, if you're cooking dinner and you're thinking, I'm doing a great job, I'm commenting on what I'm doing, and your child is building a puzzle in the other room, we're not tuning in to what they're interested in. They don't have to be interested in cooking dinner with you. They don't have to be interested that you're trying to open up their juice cup. They could just be frustrated, and that's fine. So if they are working on a puzzle or something like that, thinking about how you can generalize that commenting strategy may really work out for you. So we're going to tune in and see, what are they doing? How can I comment on that? So if it's an animal puzzle, go right ahead with those animal sounds. Instead of reading a book and talking about a barn, you can use that same commenting strategy with a puzzle or a different activity. The second one is to talk more. I love that it says talk more and not as much as a speech language pathologist, because we can be really chatty. I know I am. So if you're not someone who talks all the time, I've actually had families set a little reminder once every 2 hours or 3 hours on their phone that says, talk more. so that you can tell yourself, okay, I forgot during snack time, I really didn't talk to my kids because we were in a rush. I needed to get them to eat their food and so that I could clean this kitchen. That's fine. Life happens, you know? But if you're someone who maybe uses, 3 to 5 sentences with your kiddos, maybe try for 6 or 7, and that's a-okay, because improvement is improvement, and we're not going to judge that. The last one is taking turns. A conversation is different than a presentation. So I'm talking to y'all right now, and we definitely have time at the end for some question and answer, which I'm excited about. But when you're with your little one, after all this commenting, it's a great idea to pause. So I'm thinking back to those book routines where I was saying, you can interact with the sun on the page, you can pretend it's hot, and then you can pause and see what your child does. Your child might do the same thing with the sun, or inappropriately generalize it to, ooh, the barn is hot too. And you can use that as a teaching moment. But it's a great idea to pause for a moment and let your child take a turn with you. Again, they might not be verbal at this stage. So their communication and their ability to take turns might be pointing and looking at you. It might be turning the page and looking at you saying, I'm ready for more. So it's not a bad idea at all to just wait for a moment and see how your child responds to all that commenting. So I was giving you a lot of information on if your child is younger or if your child is older. You might be thinking, how do I know what I comment on during these family routines? I would definitely refer you to the American Speech Language Hearing Association, or ASHA. They have a really great webpage. It's at the end of today's presentation. There's a link for it for you. And I was a little stingy because at the bottom it says, what can I do to help? I encourage you to go and explore these documents. They have them from birth all the way up to 5th grade. And it maps out specifically for language, what should my child be doing in this age range with their ability to understand me and their ability to communicate back. And at the bottom, it's how do I help them do that? So your child might not fall into this age range if they are receiving services, or if you're looking at this checklist and thinking, my toddler is not doing any of these skills yet, that might be a great opportunity to speak to your local systems manager about getting them enrolled in early intervention. Again, your child could also be way above. So you might have a 2-year-old looking at this list going, my kid's doing all of this. Great. Bump up to the 4-year-old skills where you can have an idea about what to do with your commenting with your little one. So there's one more strategy I'd like to go over today. And I love this photo because I see this all the time in my workday where little ones just get frustrated. And this strategy is called behavior-specific praise. I've had a lot of family members or families that I serve tell me, my kid's language is doing fine, but my goodness, we've had a total different schedule. They're off their routine, and I am seeing just these spikes in negative behavior. So I want you to take what you've learned with the commenting strategy, and we're going to use that to build to this behavior-specific praise strategy. I like to call it the good job, what strategy. So in this picture, you can see this little boy is cleaning up, I think it's drumsticks that his friends were using at school. You can tell them, good job. I like the way you're doing that. Nice work. Or you can use that commenting strategy to tell your child, good job cleaning up. I love the way that you put those in the basket, because then you're modeling the verb cleaning up. So they're realizing, you keep saying I need to clean up. You taught me what cleaning up is by showing me and by commenting about it. You're also working on that preposition when you're saying put it in the basket. So I really think this strategy can be great to shape your child's behavior as well as expose them to new words. One of my favorite words that people may forget about is sharing. So I love the way that you shared your teddy bear. That was really nice. Your sister was crying and you gave her that teddy bear. I'm really proud of you. So they understand what it means to share. So you may be thinking, great, these are some wonderful strategies. How do I use them? What activities can you give me to use these strategies with my kiddos? Well, at the end of this webinar, I do have a list of activities from ASHA, that, like we talked about earlier. So not only do you have the resources on what your child should be doing in their age range, but there is an activity chart about things that you can do during this different time that we're going through. I encourage you to figure out, what does your child do? So I see a bunch of different kiddos and have seen a bunch of different toddlers in my career. I've got one little girl we're working on having her go up to her mom and say squeeze, because she loves a deep pressure, big hug. So if that's something you can comment on, I'm gonna squeeze you, I love you, I'm giving you a hug. That's great. Maybe your child is someone who likes to sit and play with blocks more. Then you can comment during that activity. Let's build a really, really tall tower together. I hope the blocks don't fall. Oh no, they fell on the ground. One of those blocks is under the table. Different things like that. So I would encourage you guys to maybe make a list of 2 to 3 of some of your kids' favorite activities where you feel like they really thrive. And those would be the moments during your family routines to say, I'm putting the work in. I'm really going to comment to them. On the other hand, I would encourage you to write down maybe 1 or 2 activities that might frustrate your child. Maybe when they're building blocks, they get really overwhelmed when it does fall down. There's the opportunity to use the behavior specific praise strategy so that you're telling your child, hey, I love the way you took a deep breath. It is okay if our blocks fall down. I'm really proud of you. So let's jump back to those questions that we asked in the beginning of today's webinar. The first one was, how do we work on these therapies in our homes? Well, I talked a lot about commenting during family routines. We thought about finding resources from credible websites like ASHA, which is the American Speech Language Hearing Association. We want to make sure that the information you're getting is from professionals so that you know that you're targeting the right goals and that you're working on things at an appropriate age level. I talked about reading books, but I didn't mention another thing I'm really excited about. Like if you don't have books around, or if you're feeling like my kid might be really bored of these books, or they really enjoy watching movies with their older siblings, you can read a DVD cover. All that commenting that I did earlier was 1 page in a book. That would be the same as the front cover of a DVD. You can also go through and read magazines together. I kid you not, I did a session and we read a phone book. There were like 5 pictures in it total. One of them was a car. And we spent like 5 minutes pointing at the car, saying beep, beep, vroom, vroom, pointing to cars outside, and it worked. And the last thing we talked about for working on therapies in your home is to use specific praise to model new words to your child, like sharing or cleaning up, and to shape their behavior positively while they're going through a rough time right now. The second question was, do we have the tools in place? Oh yeah, we do. If you've got books, if you've got those DVD covers, magazines, even a phone book, then you can work on that commenting routine while you're looking at the same thing together. We can also talk about the items that you would normally use while you're doing chores. So we touched on that cooking routine. We talked about filling up their cup. What about laundry? I do laundry way more than the average person should. But you can talk to your child about the different colors of clothes, that your shirts go on your body, your pants go on your legs, different things like that. That's just a part of your normal laundry routine. The best tool that you have is your own voice. So I'll have a lot of families ask me, how do I teach my child to count? Count with them. How do I teach them colors? Talk to them about the different colors that they see. If you're eating a meal and you've got steak and green beans and mashed potatoes, those are all different colors. So you can talk about that with your little one. Use your voice and don't be afraid to really respect the power of your own voice. The last question is, where do we begin? Well, you already did because you're here. So I'm so excited that you guys are here. I hope that you definitely learned something. But we also talked about that language development checklist that you can check out that I put a screenshot of earlier. The last website that I would encourage you to go to is healthychildren.org. And this is backed by the American Academy of Pediatrics, so you know it's coming from a credible source. And you might be thinking, great, I've got some speech and language ideas. What about sleep? Because my kiddo has not been sleeping normally since school stopped and their siblings aren't going to school or different things like that. This website touches on a lot of areas of development, so it would be a great resource to you if you have multiple kiddos in your house or if you feel like you have more questions that you need answered. So I'm going to pause now and see if we have any questions at this time.
We do, Michelle, actually have a couple of questions. As a reminder, For those of you who may not have heard earlier, if you have any questions, you can input them in the chat box. It's near the bottom of your screen. So there are a couple of questions that have been asked. One is, if my child isn't saying any words yet, how can I help them make sounds and or form words?
So one of my favorite early learning strategies for encouraging them to make sounds is using some of those playful sounds and normalizing them. So I want children to feel like, oh, when we're doing our laundry and we throw our socks into the laundry bin, every single time you say, yay, we threw those in. That action can first be imitated. Sometimes actions are easier than noises. But the more you're using a specific sound, the more it normalizes it for your child. And they might go, you keep saying yay. And I think after the 10th time of throwing some of these socks in, you're going to say yay again. I might join you as an imitator, right? And I might want to do that sound as well. Depending on their age, I also encourage families. I know a lot of families that have like their camera on their phone that has different like masks on them. You can do some vocal play in the phone or in a mirror when they're brushing their teeth and do silly sounds together and make it a game. So that's, if I need to go any further on that one, let me know. But normalizing silly, easy sounds is a great place to start.
Excellent. Thanks, Michelle. The other question is, can music help my child talk more?
Oh, sure. One of my favorite things to do, and I was planning on touching on this if I was going to do a later webinar, is something called the stop and start method. So music is wonderful. If you are singing to your child, I encourage you to slow the pace down so that they have time to try to imitate some of those vowel sounds, because they're not going to know all of the words right away. Some families prefer to have their children listen to music on their phones or on YouTube. And that's a great opportunity to pause it and say, and stop. Should we have more? Do you want to sing more? They could say more, please. They could start singing the song. One of my favorites is the Itsy Bitsy Spider. So they might go, Ib, and try to show you, hey, I want more of that song. So that's a great way to encourage them to listen to music, learn from the music, and you can put the music to work.
Excellent. And we have another one. Keeping you busy, Michelle, keeping you busy. Any tips for helping your child open their mouth when making sounds? They're 17 months old. Will hum, but not open the mouth except to cough or cry.
So I would start with the sound they're giving you. If they're humming, I would, again, I know I'm a little bit of a broken record here, but I would normalize that humming, releasing it to a vowel. So I would do ma, ma, or moo. You're going to want to start with the sound that they're already using and open to a new vowel sound, and then use your ears and figure out if they are starting to do that me, go with that sound first. We want to set them up for success and simplify some of those sounds. Additionally, when they're eating, sometimes I like to do, like if you're drinking, that was a good sip of water, or if they're eating something, open up. So you're encouraging them during other routines to just open their mouth. And the distraction is you're opening your mouth because you're drinking water. You're opening your mouth because you're eating food, and you're just tagging in a little bit of that speech work in that normal routine.
Excellent. Thank you, Michelle. They also wanted to say thanks as well.
Oh, great. Thank you guys.
So I just wanted to let everyone know that you will receive a copy of this presentation, and this webinar will be uploaded to the Peatsy YouTube channel. One thing, Michelle, that you said that made me kind of laugh a little bit was the hot, hot, hot on the sun. So one of our favorite books in this house is Goodnight Moon.
Yep.
We love Goodnight Moon. And ever since my oldest was a little thing, we would always be like hot, hot, hot on the fireplace. And all of the kids, even now, I can't even get through the book because it's like hot, hot, hot. The fireplace is hot.
Yeah,
so
I have one kiddo I just adore, and his mom said, Michelle, I can't stop it. And I'm like, great, that's my job, is to get him talking. You can figure out how to get him to stop talking.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for Michelle for being here. Thank you to all of the attendees. Just wanted to let you know that next Therapist Thursday, we will welcome Jeannie Hopkins. She's an early childhood development specialist from Hampton Roads. She'll be sharing the everyday hands-on activities that we can do with our children that are not only fun, but also support their continued growth and development. Thank you again for joining us this afternoon, and we wish you all a happy, healthy week.